My name is Joanna, and I'm 34 years old. Right now, I'm standing in a hospital room, watching my husband lie pale and defeated on that sterile white bed. 6 months ago, he laughed when his mistress slapped me across the face in front of everyone at Le Bernardin. He never imagined that slap would cost him everything he'd built, everything he'd stolen, and everything he thought he owned, including me. Before I share what happened that night and how I orchestrated his complete downfall, tell me where you're watching from. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your whole heart, hit that subscribe button because this story will show you that sometimes the best revenge comes when they least expect it. For 12 years, I thought I had built the perfect life with Marcus. We lived in a stunning 7-bedroom mansion in Beverly Hills, complete with an infinity pool overlooking the city lights. Marcus was 38, the CEO of a tech company he'd founded right out of Stanford, and I'd been there from the beginning working as his CFO while he built his empire from our garage. Our children Emma and Noah were 10 and 8 respectively. Emma had Marcus's sharp intellect and my stubborn streak, while Noah inherited his father's charm and my tendency to see the good in everyone. We were the family everyone envied at school functions, the couple others pointed to as relationship goals at charity galas. The change began 18 months ago when Marcus's company went public. The IPO exceeded all expectations, valuing the company at $2 billion. Overnight, our net worth multiplied, and with it came a transformation in Marcus that I initially dismissed as stress from newfound responsibilities. He started coming home later, sometimes not until 2 or 3 in the morning. His clothes carried unfamiliar scents, not quite perfume, but something floral and young that didn't belong to anyone in our household. His phone, which used to lie carelessly on counters and nightstands, now never left his possession. When notifications came through at midnight, he'd claim they were from the Tokyo office dealing with time differences. My best friend Lisa noticed before I did. We'd known each other since college, and she'd been my maid of honor at our wedding. During our weekly coffee meetings at our favorite spot in Brentwood, she'd grown increasingly concerned. "Joanna, when was the last time Marcus took you to dinner, just the two of you?" she asked one morning, stirring her latte with unusual focus. I had to think about it, which should have been my first real warning. He's been swamped with the expansion into Asian markets. You know how it is. Lisa set down her spoon deliberately. I know how it was when my ex-husband started working late every night. I'm not saying Marcus is doing anything wrong, but please just pay attention. I defended him, of course. That's what wives do when they don't want to see what's right in front of them. I told Lisa she was projecting her own failed marriage onto mine, that Marcus and I were different, stronger. We'd built our life together from nothing. He wouldn't throw that away. Looking back, I realize I wasn't defending Marcus. I was defending my own inability to see the truth. I had given up my career for this man. After Emma was born, Marcus convinced me that the children needed stability, that his income was more than enough, that I could always return to work later. I had an MBA from Wharton and 8 years of experience as a CFO, but I walked away from it all because I believed in us. The signs multiplied over the following months. He hired a personal trainer and dropped 20 pounds, started whitening his teeth, bought clothes that seemed designed for someone trying to impress. When I complimented his new appearance, thinking it might rekindle something between us, he barely acknowledged me. There were credit card charges to restaurants I'd never been to, weekend conferences that didn't appear on the company calendar I still had access to, and a sudden interest in privacy that manifested in changed passwords and locked home office doors. Still, I rationalized everything. Successful men face temptations. Stress changed people temporarily. We'd weather this storm like we'd weathered the lean years when we survived on ramen noodles and dreams. I scheduled couples therapy appointments that Marcus always found excuses to miss. I planned romantic getaways that got canceled due to urgent business matters. I even bought lingerie, the expensive kind from La Perla, that cost more than most people's mortgage payments. The tag stayed on. Marcus hadn't touched me in 4 months, always too tired, too stressed, too something that meant too disconnected from the woman he'd promised to love forever. Emma noticed the distance too. She was too smart for her age, too observant. One night as I tucked her in, she asked why Daddy didn't laugh at my jokes anymore. I told her Daddy was very busy making sure we could keep our nice house and go to good schools. She looked at me with eyes that seemed far too knowing and said, "I'd rather live in an apartment if it meant Daddy would smile at you again." The unraveling began with something as mundane as a receipt. I was collecting Marcus's suits for dry cleaning when a slip of paper fell from his jacket pocket, the Ritz-Carlton 2 nights at the penthouse suite, champagne strawberries, and a couple's massage. The date matched a weekend he'd supposedly spent at a tech summit in San Francisco. My hands shook as I photographed the receipt. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately, but a stronger part needed to know the full truth first. That evening while Marcus showered, I did something I'd never done in 12 years of marriage. I checked his phone. He'd changed his passcode, but he didn't know I'd watched him enter it from across the room days earlier. The messages were all there, hidden in a folder marked Work Archives. The sender was saved as AM, with a heart emoji that made my stomach turn. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Same sweet as last time. You looked incredible in that presentation today. How am I supposed to concentrate when all I can think about is what's underneath that suit? Your wife is lucky. Too bad she doesn't appreciate what she has." That last message made me want to throw the phone against the wall. This woman, whoever AM was, had the audacity to mention me to judge my marriage to position herself as some kind of upgrade. 2 days later, I followed Marcus to his office. I told myself I was being paranoid that AM could be anyone, that emotional affairs sometimes stayed emotional. I parked across the street from the gleaming 40-story tower that housed his company and waited. She emerged from the building at 6:30, and I knew immediately she was the one. Alexandra Miller, 27 years old, the new Vice President of Strategic Development. Marcus had mentioned her once or twice, praising her innovative thinking and fresh perspective. Fresh was certainly one way to describe her. She was everything I wasn't anymore. Tall where I was, average blonde where I was brunette, and young in that way that made every movement seem effortless. She wore a burgundy dress that hugged curves that hadn't yet discovered gravity or childbirth. When Marcus appeared behind her, his face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. He pulled her into an embrace right there on Wilshire Boulevard, not even trying to hide. His hands tangled in her hair as they kissed, and I watched my marriage dissolve in real time through my windshield. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the joy on his face, the enthusiasm in his movements, the man I used to know coming alive for someone else. I drove home in a daze and called the only person I could think of. Tom Bradley came highly recommended as Los Angeles' most discreet private investigator. We met at a small cafe in Santa Monica where he laid out his fees and what he could do for me. "Mrs. Chen, I want to be clear about what you're asking for. Documentation of an affair for divorce proceedings is straightforward. But if you're looking for more, if you want to know everything, that's a different investigation entirely." I wanted everything. Over the next 3 weeks, Tom delivered beyond my wildest fears. The affair had been going on for 8 months. Alexandra wasn't just Marcus's mistress. She was actively involved in planning a future that didn't include me. Tom had photographs of them at jewelry stores, looking at engagement rings. He had recordings from restaurant conversations where they discussed Marcus's timeline for divorce, how to minimize alimony, how to structure the custody arrangement so he'd pay the least child support. But the most damaging discovery came from Tom's financial investigation. Marcus had been slowly moving assets offshore. Cryptocurrency accounts, Cayman Island holdings, Swiss-numbered accounts that held millions in diverted funds. He'd been planning his exit for months, making sure I'd get as little as possible when he finally pulled the trigger. The emails Tom recovered between Marcus and Alexandra revealed the full scope of their plan. She wasn't just sleeping with my husband. She was helping him hide money using her position in the company to facilitate transfers that looked like international business developments, but were actually personal asset shuffling. Once the divorce is finalized, we can merge the offshore accounts. One email read, "Joanna won't even know what hit her. 3 more months and you'll be free." 3 months. They had a timeline for disposing of me like I was a problematic business acquisition. Despite everything, some pathetic part of me still wanted to save my marriage. Maybe if Marcus saw what he was risking, if I could remind him of what we'd built together, he'd come to his senses. I decided to confront him properly, not with accusations and tears, but with dignity and one last attempt at reconciliation. I made a reservation at Le Bernardin for Friday night, our anniversary restaurant, the place he'd proposed 13 years ago. I told him I wanted to discuss Emma's school situation, something I knew he couldn't ignore. I planned every word I would say, how I would tell him I knew about Alexandra, but was willing to work through it if he was willing to try. I was a fool, but I was a fool who still believed in the man I'd married, not the stranger he'd become. That Friday night would change everything, though not in the way I'd planned. Le Bernardin hadn't changed much over the years. The same elegant blue and silver decor, the same impeccable service, the same table by the window where Marcus had gotten down on one knee all those years ago. I arrived early wearing the black Versace dress he'd bought me for my 30th birthday, the one he used to say made me look like a movie star. I ordered a glass of Chablis and watched the door, my heart pounding with each arrival. Marcus was 20 minutes late, then 30, then 40. I was about to give up when he finally walked in and my blood turned to ice. He wasn't alone. Alexandra Miller walked beside him, her hand resting possessively on his arm. She wore a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary and diamonds that caught the light with every movement. Marcus looked uncomfortable when he saw me, but only for a moment before his expression shifted to something cold and businesslike. "Joanna," he said, approaching the table with Alexandra still attached to his arm. "I didn't expect to see you here." "We had a reservation," I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady. "To discuss Emma's school situation, remember?" He had forgotten. Of course he had forgotten. Alexandra's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched as she looked between us. "Oh, this must be your wife," she said, extending a manicured hand as though we were being introduced at a cocktail party. "I'm Alexandra Miller, VP of Strategic Development. Marcus and I are celebrating closing the Singapore deal." I didn't shake her hand. I couldn't bear to touch her, this woman who'd been in my bed, who'd worn my perfume to cover her tracks, who'd helped plan the destruction of my family with spreadsheet efficiency. "I know exactly who you are," I said quietly. The restaurant seemed to pause around us. Nearby diners sensed the tension, their conversations trailing off as they watched our table with poorly concealed interest. Marcus pulled out a chair for Alexandra directly across from me. The audacity of it, the casual cruelty of making me sit across from his mistress in the restaurant where we'd gotten engaged, was breathtaking. "Since we're all here," Marcus said, signaling the waiter, "we might as well have dinner. Alexandra and I do have something to celebrate, and Joanna, we need to talk about the future anyway." Alexandra smiled, picking up her menu as though this was perfectly normal. "The lobster here is supposed to be exceptional. Marcus, didn't you say this used to be your favorite restaurant?" Used to be. Past tense. Like our marriage, like our life together, like everything I thought mattered. The waiter approached with a bottle of champagne I hadn't ordered. Dom Perignon, the same vintage Marcus had ordered the night he proposed. He poured 3 glasses while I sat frozen, unable to process the deliberate cruelty of this moment. "To new beginnings," Alexandra said, raising her glass toward Marcus. Then she turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And to endings that are long overdue." That's when I found my voice. "How long have you been planning this? The offshore accounts, the hidden assets, the cryptocurrency portfolios?" Marcus's expression darkened. Alexandra's smile widened. "Oh, she knows," Alexandra said with mock surprise. "Well, that does simplify things. Marcus was so worried about how to break it to you gently. I told him ripping off the Band-Aid was better." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper that somehow carried across the restaurant. "Between us girls, Joanna, you had to see this coming. A man like Marcus at the peak of his success, tied to someone who gave up her ambition to play housewife. It's almost tragic." "I gave up my career to support his," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to control it. "I was the CFO of his company. I helped build everything he has." Alexandra laughed, a tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. Helped? Is that what you tell yourself? You were a placeholder keeping the seat warm until Marcus could afford real talent. The company's value has tripled since I joined. What did it do under your leadership? She stood up, moving around the table with predatory grace, her hand trailing along Marcus's shoulder. You got comfortable, Joanna. You got old. You got boring. And worst of all, you got in the way. The wine glass in her hand tilted, and suddenly expensive burgundy was spreading across my dress, soaking through to my skin. The gasp from nearby tables was audible. Oops, Alexandra said, not even pretending it was an accident. How clumsy of me. I stood up, wine dripping from my dress, my hands shaking with rage and humiliation. You're sleeping with my husband, stealing my life, and now you're what? Marking your territory like some kind of animal. Your husband? Alexandra's laugh was cruel now. Check his ring finger, sweetheart. I looked at Marcus's hand. His wedding ring was gone. When did you take it off? I asked him, directly ignoring Alexandra. He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there was worse than hatred. It was indifference. Does it matter? He said with a shrug. Joanna, we've been over for months. You just refuse to see it. We have children, I said, my voice breaking. Emma and Noah, they need a father who's happy, Alexandra interrupted. Not one trapped in a dead marriage with a woman who can't even bother to stay interesting. That's when she did it. The slap came without warning, her palm connecting with my cheek with enough force to snap my head sideways. The crack echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot. My ear rang, my cheek burned, and tears sprang to my eyes, not from pain but from pure shock. The entire restaurant fell silent. Waiters froze mid-stride. Diners stared openly, some with phones already out recording everything. And Marcus laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or an uncomfortable laugh. It was genuine amusement, as though Alexandra had just told the perfect joke at the perfect moment. You deserve that for making a scene, he said, straightening his tie. Alexandra, we should go. This is getting embarrassing. Embarrassing? My humiliation was embarrassing to him. I stood there, my hand pressed to my burning cheek, watching them prepare to leave. Alexandra picked up her clutch, checking her lipstick in its small mirror, as though she hadn't just assaulted me in front of 50 witnesses. Oh, Joanna, she said, pausing beside me. Marcus's lawyer will be in touch about the divorce papers. I'd suggest you find representation quickly. We're eager to move forward with our plans. She linked her arm through Marcus's, and they walked toward the exit. At the door, Marcus turned back one last time. The house is in my name, by the way. I'll give you 30 days to make other arrangements. They left me standing there, wine-stained, slapped, and publicly humiliated in the restaurant where my life had supposedly begun. The maitre d' approached cautiously, offering towels and apologies, asking if I wanted to press charges. I declined everything except the check. I paid for the champagne they'd ordered for the wine that was soaking my dress for the dinner we'd never eat. As I signed the receipt, my hands steady. Despite everything, I made a decision. Marcus thought he'd won. Alexandra thought she'd claimed her prize. They had no idea what they'd just started. I walked out of Le Bernardin with my head high, ignoring the sympathetic looks and whispered conversations. In the parking lot, I sent a single text to Tom Bradley. Get me everything, whatever it costs. Then I sat in my car and did something I hadn't done in years. I called my old colleague from Wharton, David Kim, who now ran a forensic accounting firm specializing in corporate fraud. David, it's Joanna Chen. I need your help, and I need it to be absolutely ruthless. His response was immediate. Whatever you need. When do we start? Tonight. We start tonight. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, a legal pad, and 13 years of accumulated knowledge about Marcus's business practices. By dawn, I had filled 20 pages with notes, passwords. I still remembered accounts he didn't know I knew about, and connections I could leverage. The video from the restaurant had already gone viral. Someone had posted it on social media with the caption, CEO's Mistress slaps wife in public while he laughs. By morning, it had 2 million views and counting. Emma came downstairs for breakfast, her face pale and drawn. "Mom, everyone at school is sending me the video," she said, her voice small. "Is it true? Is Dad leaving us for her?" I pulled my daughter into my arms, feeling her sob against my shoulder. Noah joined us, confused and frightened by his sister's tears. In that moment, holding my children while they grappled with their father's betrayal, something crystallized inside me. This wasn't just about me anymore. Marcus had humiliated our children. Alexandra had made them collateral damage in her campaign to steal our life. They would both pay for that. Catherine Walsh was the best divorce attorney in California, with a reputation for destroying cheating husbands who tried to hide assets. She'd handled the divorces of 3 Oscar winners and a tech billionaire. Her retainer was astronomical, but Tom Bradley's evidence made her take my case immediately. "This is financial abuse at its most egregious," she said, reviewing the documentation of hidden accounts. "He's been planning this for months, systematically stripping marital assets while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. Judges hate this kind of calculated cruelty." But the divorce was just the beginning. David Kim's investigation into Marcus's business dealings revealed something far more serious than hidden assets. Marcus had been engaging in insider trading using information from Alexandra's position to make trades that netted millions in illegal profits. "Joanna, this is SEC territory," David said during our meeting at his downtown office. "He's looking at federal charges if this comes to light." "When?" I corrected. "When it comes to light." I still had access to Marcus's old company email account, the one he'd forgotten existed when he upgraded to a new system. It was still forwarded to a Gmail account I'd set up years ago for backup. The emails between him and Alexandra painted a picture of corporate corruption that would destroy them both. But the most interesting discovery came from the private investigator Tom had hired to dig into Alexandra's background. She wasn't just betraying me, she was betraying Marcus too. Alexandra Miller has been in a relationship with Christopher Lang for 3 years. Tom told me, sliding a folder of photographs across his desk. "They're very careful, but not careful enough. Christopher Lang, the son of Marcus's biggest competitor, the CEO of a rival tech firm that had been trying to poach Marcus's clients for years." The photographs showed Alexandra and Christopher at a beach house in Malibu, at restaurants in San Diego, where they thought no one would recognize them, and most damningly, at Christopher's apartment the same nights she was supposedly with Marcus. "She's playing him," I said, the pieces falling into place. "She's using Marcus to get information for Christopher's father." Tom nodded. "The timeline matches. Every major deal Marcus lost in the last 8 months, Lang Industries somehow knew exactly how to underbid. Your husband thinks he's in love. He's actually being used for corporate espionage." I sat back in my chair, absorbing this information. Part of me wanted to warn Marcus to save him from the humiliation that was coming. But then I remembered his laugh when Alexandra slapped me, his casual cruelty about the house, the way he'd looked at me with such indifference. No. He'd made his choice. Now he could live with the consequences. The plan came together over the next 2 weeks. I worked 18-hour days, fueled by rage and determination. Catherine filed the divorce papers with a forensic accounting that revealed every hidden asset. David prepared a comprehensive report on the insider trading for the SEC. Tom continued documenting Alexandra and Christopher's relationship. But I needed one more piece, something that would destroy Alexandra as thoroughly as she'd tried to destroy me. It came from an unexpected source, Alexandra's former assistant at her previous company, who reached out after seeing the viral video. She did the same thing at Morrison Tech, the woman told me over coffee. Seduced the CEO, got promoted, then sold company secrets to a competitor. They couldn't prove it, but everyone knew. She's a corporate black widow. Armed with this pattern of behavior, I had everything I needed. The execution would require precise timing and a little theatrical flair. After all, if Alexandra wanted to perform in public, I'd give her an audience she'd never forget. Marcus's company was hosting its annual investor gala in 2 weeks. Everyone who mattered in tech would be there, including Christopher Lang and his father. It would be the perfect stage for the final act. The Universal City Hilton Ballroom glittered with the kind of ostentatious wealth that made Silicon Valley famous. Ice sculptures shaped like computer chips, champagne fountains, and a string quartet playing techno music arrangements. Marcus's company had pulled out all stops for their biggest event of the year. I arrived deliberately late, making sure most guests were already several drinks in. My dress was custom Valentino blood red and impossible to ignore. I'd spent the afternoon at the salon emerging with the kind of polish that reminded everyone I'd once belonged in this world. The security guard at the door tried to stop me fumbling with his list. "Mrs. Chen, I don't see your name." "That's because it's under my maiden name," I said smoothly. "Joanna Mitchell. I'm one of the original investors." It wasn't a lie. I'd invested my entire severance package from my previous job into Marcus's company during the early days. That 2% stake was worth $40 million now, though Marcus didn't know I'd never sold it. The ballroom hushed as I entered. Everyone had seen the video. Everyone knew the story. Marcus stood near the stage with Alexandra, his hand possessively on her waist. She wore silver dripping in diamonds that I recognized from our safe. My grandmother's diamonds, family heirlooms, she had no right to touch. I made my way through the crowd, greeting old friends and business associates who seemed shocked to see me. David Kim was already there as planned, chatting with several board members near the bar. He gave me a subtle nod. "Joanna," a voice called out. Richard Morrison, the chairman of Marcus's board, approached with genuine warmth. "I'm so sorry about everything. The video, the situation, it's unconscionable." "Thank you, Richard. Actually, I'm glad you're here. There's something you should know about Alexandra Miller." I handed him a folder, the same one I'd sent anonymously to every board member that morning. His face paled as he flipped through the evidence of her corporate espionage at her previous company. The reaction rippled through the room as more board members opened their packages. But I wasn't done. The large screens around the room meant to display the company's achievements suddenly flickered. David's associate planted in the AV booth had done his job perfectly. The screens filled with emails between Alexandra and Christopher Lang. Not the romantic ones, those would come later. These were the business communications discussions about Marcus's deals, client lists, proprietary technology she was feeding to the competition. "What the hell?" Marcus's voice boomed across the ballroom. But the presentation continued. Screenshots of trades Marcus had made based on insider information Alexandra had provided. SEC filing violations highlighted in red. Financial crimes laid out with PowerPoint efficiency. Alexandra's face had gone white. She tried to leave, but security guards alerted by the board to potential corporate espionage blocked the exits. "This is fabricated," she screamed, turning to Marcus. "She's making this up because she's jealous." That's when Christopher Lang stood up from his table across the room. His father sat beside him, looking murderous. "Actually, Alexandra," Christopher said loudly, "it's all true. Every word." The room erupted. Alexandra spun between Marcus and Christopher, her carefully constructed world crumbling. "Chris, baby, no," she started, and I saw the exact moment Marcus understood he'd been played. "Baby," Marcus's voice was dangerous now. Christopher laughed the same cruel laugh Marcus had given when I was slapped. "Did you really think she loved you, Chen? You were a mark. A profitable one, but still just a mark. She's been mine for 3 years." The screens changed again now, showing the photographs Tom had taken. Alexandra and Christopher on the beach, at his apartment, in his bed on nights she'd told Marcus she was working late. "Although," Christopher continued, addressing the stunned room, "I should thank you for the Singapore deal details. We'll be underbidding you by 30%. Marcus lunged at Christopher and chaos erupted. Security rushed in, board members shouted, and in the middle of it all, Alexandra stood frozen, her silver dress catching the light like a beacon of destruction. The police arrived within minutes. The SEC had been alerted that morning about the insider trading evidence and had warrants ready. They arrested Alexandra first, reading her rights, while the entire tech elite of Los Angeles watched. Marcus tried to leave, but the FBI agents stopped him at the door. Securities fraud was a federal crime, and he'd made millions from Alexandra's information. "This is your doing," he snarled at me as they cuffed him. "You vindictive." "I'm vindictive," I interrupted, my voice carrying across the now silent ballroom. "You planned for months to leave me with nothing. You laughed when your mistress assaulted me. You tried to take my children's home. I didn't do this to you, Marcus. You did this to yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it." They led him away while photographers captured every moment. The morning headlines would be brutal. The SEC froze his assets that night. The board held an emergency meeting and voted him out as CEO before dawn. Alexandra was charged with corporate espionage and securities fraud. Christopher, in a bid for immunity, testified against her. She'd been selling secrets from 3 different companies, playing multiple executives simultaneously. The FBI found offshore accounts with millions in payoffs from competitors. But the most satisfying moment came a week later in family court. With Marcus under federal investigation and his assets frozen, the judge awarded me full custody of Emma and Noah. The house that was supposedly in his name, only California's community property laws said otherwise. The prenup he thought protected him had a fraud clause that Catherine Walsh exploited brilliantly. I walked out of the courthouse with my children, my home, and my dignity restored. Marcus would spend the next 3 to 5 years in federal prison. Alexandra got 7 years and would never work in tech again. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed in the home her father had tried to steal from us, she looked up at me with those wise eyes. "Mom, are you happy now?" I thought about it, really considered the question. "I'm free, sweetheart. And freedom is better than happiness sometimes." She nodded, understanding more than any 10-year-old should have to. Dad made his choices, didn't he? He did. And now he has to live with them. 6 months later, I stood in the hospital room, looking down at Marcus. The stress of the trial, the prison sentence, the complete destruction of everything he'd built had taken its toll. A heart attack at 40, his lawyer had called to inform me, asking if I'd bring the children to see him. He looked smaller somehow, diminished in ways that had nothing to do with physical size. The monitors beeped steadily, tracking the heart that had betrayed not just me but our entire family. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "The children wanted to see their father," I said simply. "They're in the cafeteria with my mom." "And you?" I considered the question. Why was I here? Not for closure. I'd found that already. Not for forgiveness. He hadn't asked for it, and I wouldn't have given it anyway. Maybe I was here to see if I felt anything at all for the man I'd once loved enough to build a life with. "I wanted to tell you something," I said finally. "That slap Alexandra gave me, it was the best thing that ever happened to me." His eyes widened slightly. "I'm serious. It woke me up. Made me realize I'd been sleeping for years, accepting less than I deserved, letting you diminish me piece by piece until I'd forgotten who I was before I became Mrs. Marcus Chen." I pulled out my phone and showed him a news article. "I started my own investment firm 6 months ago. We're managing $500 million in assets already. Turns out people trust a woman who publicly survived what I survived. They figure if I can destroy my ex-husband's empire while he's trying to destroy me, I can probably handle their portfolios." Marcus closed his eyes. "I never meant for it to go that far." "Yes, you did. You meant for it to go exactly that far. You just didn't expect me to fight back." And Alexandra. Serving 7 years in federal prison, Christopher Lang testified against her to avoid charges. Turns out she was playing him too, had another mark lined up in Silicon Valley. "A real piece of work, your girlfriend." "Ex-girlfriend," he corrected weakly. "Everything's ex with you now, isn't it? Ex-CEO, ex-millionaire, ex-husband, ex-father, if you don't figure out how to apologize to your children for what you put them through." He was quiet for a long moment. "How do I fix this with them?" "You start by taking responsibility. No blaming me. No excusing it as business stress. No claiming Alexandra manipulated you. You tell them you made terrible choices and you're sorry. Then you spend whatever time you have left after prison proving you mean it. Do you think they'll forgive me? I gathered my purse, preparing to leave. Children are more forgiving than wives, but Marcus, they're also smarter than you gave them credit for. Emma's been seeing a therapist who's helping her understand that your choices weren't her fault. Noah's in a support group for children of incarcerated parents. They're healing with or without you. As I reached the door, he called out one more time, Joanna. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not for Alexandra, I was an idiot there, but for laughing, when she hit you. That was cruel. I turned back to look at him one last time. Yes, it was. But it was also the moment you showed me exactly who you'd become. In a way, I should thank you for that clarity. I left him there with his monitors and his regrets. Emma and Noah visited for 15 minutes, saying what they needed to say. We drove home together, the three of us, to the house I'd filled with new memories and possibilities. My company grew exponentially over the next year. I specialized in managing portfolios for women going through divorces, understanding firsthand how financial abuse worked and how to protect against it. Catherine Walsh sent me clients, as did other divorce attorneys who'd heard my story. I also started a foundation providing financial literacy education to women who'd given up careers for family. The first seminar was standing room only, filled with women who saw themselves in my story and wanted to make sure they never ended up in that restaurant humiliated and helpless. Lisa and I grew closer than ever. She'd been right about Marcus had seen what I'd refused to acknowledge. Now she served on my company's board, bringing her expertise in international markets. Michael Torres entered my life, quietly introduced by a mutual friend at a charity auction. A widower with a 12-year-old daughter, he understood complicated families and second chances. He was the opposite of Marcus in every way that mattered: kind. Where Marcus had been cruel, supportive; where Marcus had been dismissive and, most importantly, secure enough in himself that my success didn't threaten him. You're intimidating, he told me on our fourth date, laughing at my expression. Brilliant, successful, and you took down a tech CEO who tried to destroy you. That's terrifying and amazing in equal measure. We took things slowly, both of us carrying enough baggage to fill a cargo plane. But his daughter and Emma became friends, bonding over their shared love of robotics. Noah and Michael connected over soccer, something Marcus had never had time for. Alexandra was released after serving 5 years. Her sentence reduced for cooperation with authorities in uncovering a larger corporate espionage ring. She moved to Europe, where American tech companies had blacklisted her, but European firms didn't care about her past. I heard through contacts that she was working as a consultant, probably running the same games on unsuspecting executives. Marcus served 3 years and emerged to find his world completely changed. His company had been absorbed by a competitor, his reputation was destroyed, and his fortune was gone between legal fees, fines, and the divorce settlement. He worked as a coding instructor at a community college, a humbling fall from tech CEO. He tried to rebuild his relationship with the children, and I didn't stand in his way. Emma remained wary but civil. Noah, more forgiving by nature, actually enjoyed their monthly dinners. I was grateful my children could find peace with their father, even if I never could. 5 years after that slap in Le Bernardin, I was invited to speak at a conference for women entrepreneurs. The moderator asked me to share the moment I knew I could survive anything. A woman slapped me in public while my husband laughed, I said to the packed auditorium. I stood there humiliated, discarded, and something inside me shifted. I realized I'd been accepting disrespect in small doses for so long that I'd built up a tolerance to it. That slap wasn't the beginning of my pain. It was the end of my denial. The audience was silent, absorbed. Here's what I learned: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. When they tell you through actions that you don't matter, that your pain is amusing, that your sacrifice is worthless, believe them, and then use that knowledge to burn down everything they thought they could take from you and build something magnificent from the ashes. The applause was thunderous, but I wasn't finished. Some of you are in that restaurant right now, metaphorically speaking. You're standing there with wine dripping from your dress and your cheek burning while someone you trusted laughs at your pain. I'm here to tell you that this moment, this terrible, humiliating moment can be the beginning of your greatest triumph. Document everything. Protect your assets. Find your Catherine Walsh, your David Kim, your Tom Bradley. Build your team of people who believe you deserve better, and then fight with everything you have, not for revenge, but for your freedom. The person who slapped me thought she was marking her territory. What she actually did was wake a sleeping giant. She's in prison now, and I'm standing here running a billion-dollar investment firm, raising two incredible children, and sharing my story with all of you. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. Do you ever regret how it ended? I regret that it had to end that way. I answered honestly. I regret that my children had to see their father arrested. I regret the years I spent accepting less than I deserved. But I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret refusing to be a victim. And I certainly don't regret the life I built after that slap knocked sense into me. That woman thought she was taking my husband. She was actually giving me my freedom. My ex-husband thought he was discarding me for someone younger. He was actually releasing me to become someone stronger. They thought they were ending my story. They were just ending the prologue. As I left the stage that day, my phone buzzed with a message from Emma, now 15 and fierce in her own right. Watched your speech online, Mom. You're my hero. Also, can Michael teach me to drive? I promise not to crash. I laughed, really laughed, the kind that comes from genuine joy rather than bitter irony. 5 years ago, I'd stood in a restaurant with my cheek burning and my marriage ending. Now I stood in a convention center surrounded by women who saw my pain as proof that they could survive their own. That slap had woken me up to my own power, my own worth, my own capacity for both destruction and creation. Alexandra and Marcus had thought they were the authors of my ending. They were wrong. They were just the catalysts for my beginning. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. Every humiliation, every betrayal, every moment of pain had led me here, successful, independent, and teaching my daughter through example that no one, absolutely no one, gets to diminish her light. That slap. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It just took me a while to realize it. So to everyone watching this, if you've ever been betrayed, humiliated, discarded, or slapped down by someone you trusted, remember this: your comeback is your choice. Your revenge isn't in destroying them, though that can be satisfying. Your real revenge is in becoming someone they could never have imagined, someone they could never have deserved, someone they'll regret losing for the rest of their lives. What about you? Have you ever had a moment when someone's cruelty accidentally freed you? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of women who turned their worst moments into their greatest triumphs. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that their current pain is not their final chapter. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, the best revenge is a life well lived, surrounded by people who truly value you, doing work that matters, and knowing your worth can never again be determined by someone else's inability to see it. Until next time, stay strong, document everything, and never ever accept less than you deserve.